Hey everybody, I'm Brandon Bond, aka Emulous, and today we're going to check out the 1.5.3 update to Vengeance Sound's extremely versatile drum sampler synth engine, Phalanx. It's a great plugin for creating melody lines, loops, mangling sounds, and just an overall powerhouse tool for your production arsenal. Today we're going to look at the new Trancegate, Arpeggiator, MIDI Chorder, and sample shifter that they've added to their plugin. Let's take a look.
Alright, so here's our plugin Phalanx, and I already have a loop programmed in, so let's go ahead and check it out. Alright, so that's a lot of reverb on there, huh? Alright, so we have a melody, a bass line melody, and we got our kick, clap, snare, and hat. So it's just a basic house loop. What we're going to be focused on today is with the update 1.5.3, which added an arpeggiator, Trancegate, MIDI Chorder, and sample shifter. So we're just going to start off with this initial saw. So I'm going to solo this guy. And we can do that by right-clicking inside this pad slot and doing load init saw. For now, I already have one loaded. So let's go down here. We'll see there's menu options down here, and you can scroll over to this tab that says ARP/TG. We'll select that for Trancegate, and we're going to go ahead and turn off the Trancegate by clicking on this box. We're going to leave the arpeggiator on for now. So I'm going to go over to this menu box. I'm going to click default settings and initiate the patch. So you can see we have 16 green blocks. Now each of these blocks is represented by one of these note values. So if I go down this drop down, we can choose what that note value should be. So right now we have 16ths. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the effects and the quarter, which we'll talk about later. So let's go to these eighth notes. We could even do dotted rhythms and triplet rhythms. We can also change the mode in which it handles the arpeggiation. So we can do down. We could do alternating modes. We could even do polyphonic for chords. Then we can go over here and change the octave range in which it will reach, all the way up to 4. We could change the overall length of the pattern, so we can get some interesting syncopated rhythms if we wanted to. And we can change the note length, which will gate each of the notes being played. This kind of tightens things up a little bit. Now if we look inside the graph, you'll notice that it lights up as I scroll across. If I click and drag any of these down or up, we can change the velocity. I can also change the pitch by dragging these green blocks up and down. We can also change the semitones by going to these zeros, which starts us at square one for whatever note we're playing at that time. And we can scroll up. So we can make our own melody lines and velocity curves, and we can also click and drag for the velocities as well. So we can make some interesting dynamics, melodies, and interesting rhythms just within the arpeggiator by itself by holding one note, or just one chord. Now let's go over here to the Trancegate. I'm going to turn off the arpeggiator for now, and let's go ahead and initiate this patch as well. So over here you'll see the same thing. So we have these blocks. So let's go ahead and play what we have. We're set at 30-second notes right now. Alright, so we get this kind of stutter effect. We can change it down to 16ths. Now, the same thing as the arpeggiator, we have length that we can change. So again, we can create some interesting rhythms. We can gate even more. Tighten it up. But now we also have something called contour, which sort of acts like a transient shaper so we can beef up or soften the attack. We can also add decay, make it more percussive. And we can also do a delay of start. So if we do quarter note, we can even also do a fade in. And we can blend the overall mix. Another option that we don't have over here right now is under mode, so which you can switch to stereo. So now it divides this up to the left and right channels. So now we can control our stereo width and how wide and how far it's going to pan these. So right now, everything's happening at the same time. Now we can, just like in this box, control the velocities of each of these pads. But now we can do them on each individual channel. You also see these arrows pop up here, which allow us to tie the notes together. So if I scroll this all the way across on both sides, I can tie these notes at different spots. And then again, we can scroll through for different velocities. And you'll hear it panning, so if you have a good pair of monitors or some headphones, you can hear this shifting in between. Now on both of these guys, they're each broken down into categories, so we can even check out some that have already been made. So we can use some complex rhythms, or side chaining, without having to use a compressor. We can also do some special effects like the auto panner. And one of my favorites, which is just the trance ambience. We can also do this with the arpeggiator. So scrolling through, categorizing the bass lines, drums, special effects, and synths. So with the bass line, we can choose an electro bass line. Another feature is that we can hold Alt or Option plus click and drag across to create velocity ramps, both forwards and backwards. And this works on both the Trancegate and the Arpeggiator. So this is how we can create sidechain effects really fast, just like we checked out in the presets. We can even do this on the drums. So if we go back over here to clap, now each pad has its own dedicated Arpeggiator and Trancegate page. So that means if I solo this guy, now you'll see it's off. So we can go on the Arpeggiator, I can turn on clap short, just arm this guy. You could even change the pitch if you wanted to. So now even within Phalanx we could build loops just within the plugin itself and sample that. So there's a lot of different combinations. It's kind of just whatever you want to do as far as your quickest workflow. Alright, so let's go and turn the arpeggiator off on this guy and go back. Alright, so now we can combine these. So I'm going to choose one that I've made with this. So now you kind of get a mix of the two. Now if you look in the middle here, we have the shuffle and global. Shuffle will definitely swing whatever we're doing. And then if we click global, it means on every single pad that we have, you'll look and you'll see the shuffle has been switched. So if I shift everything over here, if I go back to the melody, it's all the same. Now I can declick this and move the clap if I didn't want that to be shuffled. And the kick, the melody, and everything else will stay that way, except for the clap. So I'm going to put global back in and put this to 16.5. Now, in order to beef this sound up, it's a little thin right now, we're going to go over here to the MIDI tab. And in the corner, we're going to see this quarter. Now the quarter is a harmonizer, which can create some unison sounds. We can do some detuning, panning, and we can mix blend additional voices. So I'm going to go ahead and turn these off for now. Go to the quarter, and we're going to set this to 1. So let's turn this on. And let's turn these off for now. So you can tell as soon as I pan it, everything gets a lot wider, but the detuning actually causes a little bit of wobble. Now in these boxes right here, we can choose up to 4 voices to add, We can go up 2 octaves and down up to 2 octaves based on semitones. So I'm actually going to add a lower octave on this one. And we'll blend it with the volume. I'm going to add a third voice that's unison. And we'll pan it to the left. Now let's bring back in the arp and the trance. Now it sounds a lot fatter and a lot bigger. And then when we just add a little bit of effects, we have a really, really big sounding synth. And all I'm doing is holding one note. So I got an arp playing my melody, Trancegate giving it some shape and some stereo imaging and some really cool stutter effects. And I got the MIDI Chorder giving it some width and making it a lot fatter. So we can right click on here too, and we can also check out some presets. And one that I've made, Beefy Synth. We'll add some effects, and then we can change up some of the MIDI. And then we get this. Alright, so the last thing I want to show you is the sample shifter. So we're going to open up a different file for this. So right here, I'm going to open up XP8 Pure Drums 1 from Vengeance Sound. It's an expansion for Vengeance Phalanx. And we're going to do the EDM kits. I'm going to go to just drum kits. I'll test them out. I like that one. Let's go ahead and select that. We're going to do load bank. And we're going to override all the pads. So right now, everyone is coming out of their own output. I'm going to right click and set them all to 1. And I've already built a MIDI patch ready to play in this drum kit mode inside of Phalanx. Now if we go to MIDI, the shifter is located right here on the top left. So you'll notice that it's set on kit mode right now. We can go to multi and we have all 16 pads. Everything's labeled. But this means every note on the keyboard is going to be pitched to each of them. So if we do drum kit mode, we have a small selection. And now we can just play the keys in a row. So it makes it a lot easier, especially if you're using a drum sampler or a hardware sampler to use, so everything is chromatic. So with the shifter, you'll see it's selected on both right now. So we select this drop-down menu, you see off, A, B, and both. Each sample that we have has 2 samples. And so you notice that there is a top kick on this guy. So when we play this, those are our 2 different samples that we have. And you can load up to 2 samples on each pad and crossfade between them. But when we use the shifter, it's going to randomly select a preloaded sample from the source folders that it came from. So right now we're using this EDM drum kit. Now if I go into these XP8 one-shot samples, you'll see this folder located and says EDM samples. Go in there and you'll see EDM claps, cymbals, effects, hi-hats, and so forth. Within these kits, they've only used these pre-programmed wave files or samples. So when we randomize this sample with the shifter, it's only going to pick the kick from this source file, since I opened up an EDM kit, a snare from this snare file, a rim shot from this rim shot, and so forth. So it's going to keep it generally the same. So it just picks it from its own dedicated folder. So I'm going to keep it on both for all these, and we're just going to listen to what drum beat we have right now. That's pretty cool. We can click random and we're going to shift the samples. And so you notice they all just changed. So you can really test a lot of different samples out randomly on the fly and just get some different ideas. Now it really works if you just want to scroll through and switch a snare sample, or even just test out the B samples on some of these. You can just scroll it over and test some stuff out real quick. So if you like the kick, but we're not digging this sample right here, we could actually go to percussion 2. And we're going to say we're going to switch both. We can switch all of these to off if we wanted to. So by default, they're all on. And when we hit random, it's only going to switch that single percussion 2. So now we have this here. So there you have it. So now with the sample shifter, we can just randomly switch samples on the fly. This is an excellent plugin from Vengeance Sound and Kyleworth Audio. And head over to Vengeance Sound and check it out.